Hello, and welcome to the fourth edition of My and I. Today we're going to go back and probably talk about what we should have spoken about at the beginning for all of those who don't know where all of this started. It started with the cabinet crisis of 1964. In order to include the voice of my father, Henry Masauko Chipembere, in this conversation, I will be reading from an article he wrote called Malawi in Crisis. This was published in Ufahamu, the journal of the African Activist Association at UCLA in 1970.
I was in the new house that we were given, very close to the state house.
Is this in Zomba? Is this your house
This
in
is
Zomba?
Zomba, the house
Okay.
in Zomba. I look to the window. I see a police car, bright, very clean police car, and a white man driving it. I go, wait a minute. A police car with a white man in it. After 10 minutes, another police car. Then Vera calls. Okay? Hi, Catherine. I'm calling to tell you that my husband has been fired. I don't care. We can find another job. That's it. Otto Chirwa is one of the most brilliant men. He's one top lawyer. So I said, what happened? She just kept on saying, Kamuzu fired my husband. But I don't care. We can find another job. Meanwhile, I don't know that the phones have been tapped. So then I get another phone call. It's a policeman. Oh, hello, this phone has been tapped. This is the police. So I start getting scared. What is happening? Luckily, I was with my brother-in-law, John. He's the one who really made me calm down. Then she calls again. Vera did not tell me why the husband was fired. The second call, then the police closed the phone. Okay? Yeah. But now I call John. I say, Alamu? Alamu means brother-in-law. Come here. So, some things are going on here that are very strange. I'm seeing police cars passing by, one after another. Then Vera Chirwa has called me to say her husband has been fired. And Otto Chirwa is a minister who can never be fired anytime because the Kamuzu needs him any minute. I hear knock at the door. Go. It was Honorable Chiume. I opened the door. Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Do you have Wanankuba? I used to call my husband. Wanankuba's phone number. Wanankuba is the governor.
Okay, big man.
In Shinyanja, the governor of the Nyasaland was called Wanankuba.
Okay.
Wanankuba. Nkuba is Swahili for a big man.
Big man. Okay.
Daddy had left for Canada for a meeting on local government.
Okay.
Before he left, he met them, Otto Chirwa, Honorable Chume, Mai Chivambo. Oh, she was one of the ministers. Who was the other one?
Chiziza?
Yeah, and this is a group of people going to talk to Kamuzu. Why is he keeping the white people still working for us? Like the policemen is white people. DC was still a white man. All the position the white people had, they were never taken.
The civil service was dominated by British expatriates, some of whom had no sympathy with African aspirations and often sabotaged some of our policies. We wanted to be able to replace them with Africans imbued with the right national spirit.
When we get our independence, you must take these people out.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
So then I tell Mr. Chume, he didn't leave us phone number. I said, okay, I'll go find it. So then John comes out of the bedroom, and says, my Alamu, brother, sister-in-law, don't tell them anything about my brother. They can find all the information themselves. I went, okay, thank you, John.
So he doesn't want the ministers to be able to reach Chip.
Yeah. Before they went to see Kamuzu, Chipembere saw the papers they wrote. Okay? And he told them, Kamuzu does not want to be told things. Wait for me. Let me come back from Canada and we can sit down and rewrite all these things normally. She said, oh no, we are going. When Chipembere comes here, he's going to do things the Christian way. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay? That's where he blew it.
Okay.
So then They went to Kamuzu to show him the papers they wrote.
Right.
And the Kamuzu did not like what they wrote. So he said, okay, you are all fired.
Dr. Banda quite bluntly rejected the principle of consultation. In several public pronouncements, both in Parliament and outside, he declared that he made and would always make all the decisions. Dr. Banda declared that such benefits as government-provided housing were wrong for African civil servants, but right for European civil servants. At his party residence in Blantyre, he had a living room in which he received only Europeans, including officials working under us. Africans were invariably received in the inferior living room. He imposed hospital fees on the people who had throughout the colonial era never been made to pay for government medical services. Wherever he went, he was accompanied by a large convoy of vehicles, each carrying several youths, fed and paid from national money. He had several expensive cars. He had ordered the putting up of more official residences, and at least 2 places were already being cleared or surveyed for that purpose. He now has more than 5 official lodges, in addition to a $4.5 million one for which funds are already being raised and which is going to be the most expensively built state palace in Africa. How strange this is, since by per capita income, Malawi is the poorest country in Africa. In the field of external relations, the Prime Minister had gradually begun to abandon the non-alignment policy that had been agreed upon and which had been one of the party's main planks during the election campaign of 1961, featuring prominently in its manifesto. The balance was no longer maintained, with Banda leaning more and more to the West. What also caused concern was his growing friendship with the segregationist minority regimes of South Africa, Rhodesia, and Mozambique. During his 43 years abroad, he had ceased to be an African in everything but skin color. This was confirmed by his attitude to the Organization for African Unity and to other African states. He had the greatest contempt for them. The Malawi government's relations with other African states are now, of course, at their worst. No black African state has an embassy in Malawi, while there are embassies from practically every West European country and the United States. Besides, South Africa, Portugal, nationalist China, Israel, and Japan have embassies in Malawi, but no African state has.
Then I said, I want to call him not to come back here because the Shume, when we had the
State of emergency.
state of emergency, he stayed in England.
Sure.
He was never jailed like the others were.
So you felt jail was coming. There was going to be prison again. All those things were coming back.
Yes, back to chaos.
Okay. The British administrative and intelligence officers who surrounded Dr. Banda felt insecure in their positions as long as those of us who were regarded as radicals were in the cabinet. They feared that we would soon demand their post be Africanized, that they should be replaced by Africans about whose political loyalty and dedication the government could be absolutely confident. The officers also believed that we were potentially, if not actually, communist sympathizers and would lead the country into the communist camp. So they were striving to work for our dismissal from the cabinet. To achieve this, they were systematically sowing seeds of suspicion and distrust in Dr. Banda's mind.
He goes somewhere, he finds it.
Chiume finds the number.
He tells Chipembere, we have been fired, and Daddy told them already, I told you so. Don't take this message to Kamuzu. He doesn't like to be told things. I told you already. Then they thought back and say, oh my goodness, we should have listened to Chipembere. You see? Too late.
Now it's too late.
Exactly.
So you felt Daddy in this situation should have stayed outside in Canada so that he could wait for things and be able to come back and do things more effectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
But Daddy, as usual, did not listen. He
Okay.
came back from Canada. He's coming back from Canada. I sent the government car because he used to park at the house. I sent the government car to say, okay, Bamba is coming now to the airport. You have to go pick him up. At the airport, he found that there was my car with his driver. Chume had sent a car, and probably he was there too. Kamuzu had sent his car, the president, with his only driver, all to welcome Chipembere.
So basically, he was being given a choice. Are you going to go with the ministers?
Excellent.
Are you going to go with Kamuzu? Are you going to go see your wife?
My husband said, no, I'm first going to go home and ask Catherine, have you heard anything of what's going on? He got into my car, came straight to Zomba from Banda,
Right.
from Chile Airport.
Okay.
I heard him through the window. I told these guys, don't go to provoke Kamuzu.
Right.
But they didn't want to listen to me.
Right.
See what happened now?
Right.
Yeah. They're all fired. Now, where does that leave me?
Right.
Then while this was going on, Kamuzu called the governor to say, this was happening here. I fired the ministers. And the governor answers back to say, it was wrong for you to fire them.
It was unconstitutional, right?
You should not have fired them.
Okay.
But he already did it. Meanwhile, he sends a taxi to Malindi to go get Chip's father.
Wow.
Huh? So Chip's father comes by my house. Baitanidwa ndi Kamuzu. I've been called by Kamuzu. I don't know what's going on.
Chip's father, of course, is Archdeacon Habil Matthew Chipembere.
Exactly.
He's already been in government a little bit, right? Because of the time Daddy was in jail, and Grandpa,
he made him a member of parliament.
Yes, he actually replaced our dad as a member of parliament.
Yeah.
So he knew politics.
Yeah.
So Kamuzu pulls the Archdeacon, come talk to me about your son. What happens?
He was actually trying to persuade my father-in-law to convince Chipembere not to join these guys, to be with Kamuzu.
Okay.
And then Bambo answers the Kamuzu to say, I cannot tell Chipembere anything because ever since he started his politics, he doesn't allow me to participate.
Okay.
And so I cannot promise that whatever I tell him to join you, he's going to listen.
Right. Even though I'm his father, even though I'm the Archdeacon, Chipembere has his own ideas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So this did not go well with Kamuzu. He took the taxi back. Okay, go back to Mangochi. So then he passed by me and said, whatever I was talking with Kamuzu is finished. So he left for Mangochi.
The next step must be Bambo must have a conversation with Kamuzu, right?
Yeah, he did. First, the governor told Kamuzu that he did everything wrong.
Unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional. He cannot fire the ministers. And he said he didn't care.
Right, which is a big thing because now we've broken our constitution.
Yeah.
Once you do that, everything is lawless. Now we're gangsters. We're there's no respect for anything.
Exactly.
Malawi at this stage still had a British Governor General representing the Queen, his powers purely advisory. The man who then filled the post was Sir Glyn Jones. He had been a liberal and had played a part in hastening the coming of self-rule. He disagreed with Dr. Banda's dictatorial ways. When Dr. Banda came to tender his resignation, he told Dr. Banda that at least on the need for consultation, the ministers were quite right, but urged him not to resign. He said that in such a situation, what the Prime Minister had to do was to call Parliament and to seek a vote of confidence.
So there was a meeting between Chipembere and Banda. What did they discuss and how did it go?
Kamuzu was pleading for Chip to stay, but then Chip told him, I'll go think about it. I can't make an answer right now. Because he was going to go and talk to his friends again. We did go to Malindi. Then he told me, I have to go back to Bantaya. There's going to be this big meeting. We have to tell people what Kamuzu has done to us. And meanwhile, Kamuzu and the Tembos and the other Banda, they heard about the ex-ministers having a meeting, so they said, no, we can't allow them to do that. We're going to disturb this meeting. So they got villagers, came with pangas and sticks, group of them. They were told to intervene in the meeting, kick people who will come and do whatever they can do, but to hate people.
Okay, so rule of law has broken down.
The people are being killed.
So when he spoke to Kamuzu, did it seem like he already knew which side he was going to choose?
Yeah, he just became a minister 4 months. Huh?
Yeah.
All the work he did all these years, a minister 4 months, now he has to go and resign.
Wow.
He had to resign because the other ministers resigned in sympathy, so thinking that Kamuzu would change his mind, but Kamuzu never changed his mind.
The British administrative and intelligence officers who surrounded Dr. Banda felt insecure in their positions as long as those of us who were regarded as radicals were in the cabinet. They feared that we would soon demand their post be Africanized, that they should be replaced by Africans about whose political loyalty and dedication the government could be absolutely confident. The officers also believed that we were potentially, if not actually, communist sympathizers and would lead the country into the communist camp. So they were striving to work for our dismissal from the cabinet. To achieve this, they were systematically sowing seeds of suspicion and distrust in Dr. Banda's mind. What the Governor General did not realize was that Parliament in Malawi was a rubber stamp of the Prime Minister. As head of Malawi Congress Party, he had nominated all that party's candidates for election to Parliament. Parliament was full of members who owed their seats to Dr. Banda. For obvious reasons, they strongly advised him not to resign, and instead to expel the ministers. Dr. Banda immediately dismissed 3 ministers, the late Augustine Bwanawusi, Planning and Development, Kanyama Chiume, External Affairs, and Orton Chirwa, Justice. 3 others resigned in sympathy. They were the late Yatuta Chaziza, Willie Chokani, John Msonti. The Minister of Finance, John Tembo, whose niece was the Prime Minister's private secretary and nurse, as well as housekeeper, and who was consequently one of the Prime Minister's favorites, did not resign. When I returned from Canada, after receiving an urgent cable from my colleagues, I immediately resigned my post as Minister of Education.
Okay, so now I guess this is where now they must go to Parliament.
So he has to go to Parliament, make a speech. As he comes to Parliament, he brings a government car. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So people are thinking, I think he's still with Kamuzu. Okay?
Right.
He comes at the parking lot. He gets out of the car and he calls the driver outside the car and he says, give me the key, the car key. Okay? So he takes the key and gives it to the driver and says, Bambo, tenganiki mkapeleke kuboma ile shidonda siya. Okay? He tells the driver, take the key and the car to the government. I've stopped working.
I've resigned.
I have resigned.
Mm.
This is before he made a speech in Parliament.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
People are seeing
And
this.
then there were a lot of people gathered there, and there was, when he said this, there was chaos outside there.
Wow.
Huh? Real chaos. And
Yeah.
the police had to come in and, intervene. When you are not a minister, you sit in the back
Okay.
seats.
Okay.
So they saw him come in, and then he went straight to the back.
Wow.
Yeah. The MPs here, they started getting shocked. Oh, no, he's with them. But meanwhile, they don't know that Kamuzu and the younger ministers who were there, they are not ministers, but they were like
Junior ministers.
junior ministers.
These were who? The Aleki Bandas, the John Tembos.
The
Okay.
John Tembo. Aleki Banda mostly with Tembo, they were very close. And then they're the ones who went to Kamuzu to calm down, to say, don't worry, let them go, we'll help you.
Since they knew the Prime Minister's fears and anxieties about his ministers and wanted to ingratiate themselves to him with a view towards promotion, they tended to tell him what they knew he wanted to hear about us. They told the Prime Minister grave distortions of our speeches. On one occasion, I was able to gain access to a handwritten report which had been prepared by a member of the party's youth league on orders of someone higher in the party hierarchy and submitted to the Prime Minister. It purported to be a report of my speech during a tour of one of the administrative districts. I could not recognize my own speech.
Right.
You see?
Right. So basically, now you have a problem where there's a power struggle. Not everything is being done anymore because of the ideas to better Malawi. Now people are all looking for power and positions for themselves because we've left the Constitution behind.
Yes. Things became worse when he resigned. The driver of my husband, with our private car, was killed even before this thing was happening.
Wow.
The driver for the ministerial car was killed. It was very, very scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now, looking at all of this today, what do you think the lesson is for Malawi today from the cabinet crisis?
Tamuzi should not have done it on his own.
Okay.
Okay? The governor should have been there to hear all this.
Okay.
But he passed him
Right.
and just did everything himself. Fire them and
Right.
I don't care what happens to you when you go to the villages. I have nothing to do with it. Huh? That's what I hear he say.
So it seems like emotions took over and people lost sight of the rules and the law, which
Yes.
keeps things in place.
Yes, everything was chaos.
The seeds of internal strife had been sown. Even more than before, Dr. Banda feels rather insecure in his position. All of our leading supporters who did not succeed in escaping to Zambia or Tanzania are detained at the notorious Zaleka camp.